It is Monday again, which means another episode of Takedown with Paul Fontaine. Paul, it doesn't feel like it's been that long since we last recorded, deep into the early mornings on Sunday, covering the UFC show with Big Dave. So we're back, though, on our normal Takedown show, and we have three topics that we're going to discuss. The first of which is the NXT and AEW Tuesday night showdown. We'll also talk about WWE's PLE, their second one on ESPN, Crown Jewel. There's been a new match that Dave believes is going to be added that we can talk about as well. And then at the end, we have to talk about these new ratings. Big data is screwing up wrestling ratings, and we are going to discuss why. Now, I was telling Big Dave on, I think it was on Friday or Saturday, that ratings in general, when it comes to conversation, it can be a big turnoff for people. One, because they don't, some people really don't understand it and the big picture of why you talk about it. But two, it creates this like divisiveness between the AEW fans and WWE fans. But for the first time, AEW and WWE are united in this conversation with ratings because both of them are affected. So we'll talk about that at the end. But we do have the Tuesday head-to-head show, NXT and TNA, formerly the Invasion show, now the Showdown show. And if you watch Collision, basically they created an entire lineup of matches for AEW Dynamite on Tuesday. Before we even get to the matchups, and we'll go match by match for each show, and just we'll get thoughts about which one you're more interested in seeing, which one we think will do better in the ratings. Though now with the way that the ratings are, who knows? They both just might sink each other. They've done this in the past where AEW has to come on to NXT's night because of the playoff situation when baseball happens, and historically they kind of get just beat up because of the new night, right? Like, what you have the ratings data in front of you. What have been the head-to-heads when they've done this before?
You said I had it in front of me, but I'll get it real quick here. I know that the last two times, this is just off of memory, they got killed.
Yeah.
I think the time before that it was close, and the time before that, I think AEW may have actually won. So let me go back because I got them in two different tabs here. So Dynamite last year, 329,000 and a 0.1. And that would have been against NXT, which did 874,000 and a 0.24.
Wow.
So yeah, so like almost like 2.5 times in the demo and almost triple in total viewers. Like that was insane. Now the year before, it was October 10th. So they did 609,000 and a 0.26. That would be Dynamite. And that was at a time they were averaging around a 0.3 and around 800,000. So they were down like 200,000, but the demo, they weren't actually that far down. But then for NXT, they did 0.3 and a 921,000. That was over what they normally did. But that show, I believe, they loaded that show up with like they had Undertaker, John Cena, Becky Lynch, like everybody, like all hands on deck. I think Cody was on that show. Maybe even Rock. Like I don't like it was that show they loaded up like crazy because that was basically I think the first time they really went head to head. Yeah, because I'm looking at, so that was just those 3 years because 2022 they didn't do it. Just looking at 2022, so it was just those last 2 years because I think that's to do with TBS getting baseball,
and
that's why they changed. And plus, I think was it 2023 that they moved to TBS or 2022? I can't remember. Which one
it all blends in for me.
Yeah, but yeah, so that first year was close, and then last year they just got destroyed. But if you'll remember too, I don't even think they barely mentioned that they were moving to Tuesday. They didn't really announce a lineup ahead of time. And WWE, like, they didn't load up with main roster stars last year. They just more or less ran their regular show. Like, I don't even think it was a special show or anything like that. And they basically did their normal numbers last year.
This year for AEW, at least we feel like creatively the fans are a little bit more into it this year than last year. So maybe the numbers will be a little bit closer. But again, in our last topic, we'll talk about the hit that they've just taken with this new data, and we're not going backwards at all. Like, this is going to be the new normal for ratings. They're going to use this big data plus panel style versus the old just only panel style. So they're going to have to deal with these ratings from here on out. Okay, so let's look at these lineups, and I'm interested in which show that you think is the better show, at least on paper.
Well,
I have watched NXT
yeah.
for the last last couple of weeks. I've watched NXT, not super duper closely, but definitely more than I have been in the past. So I'm kind of a little bit more aware of the TNA storylines.
Or you mean AEW storylines?
No, the TNA and NXT.
Oh, you're aware, more aware
I'm more aware of what's going on
than
that
you have
show.
been in the past. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm more up to date on the NXT stuff than I have been.
Okay.
Okay, so what they built to on NXT was Team NXT, Ricky Saints, Trick Williams, Miles Bourne, and Javon Evans, and that whole thing was just wacky as all hell. Versus Team TNA, Mike Santana, Frankie Kazarian, Moose, and Leon Slater. And now Joe Hendry is the special guest referee in that match.
Yeah. Where did that come from?
I don't know. I think it was just a recent announcement on social media. I think.
Yeah, like I'm looking at that too. They did do something on the NXT show where it was Jordan Grace and Joe Hendry were like talking about they wanted to be involved. Like, I don't know why they didn't just put them on the teams. But
yes, I thought it would have been really intriguing if Jordan Grace was like, she went to both teams and was like, I've been both places. Like, who needs me? I'm a hired gun here. That would have been interesting.
I think the idea was that neither of the teams trusted either one of them because they both have feet in each pond, kind of thing. I'm sure that metaphor I just completely messed up, but you know what I mean? Like, they're both, like, Joe Hendry is on both shows, and Jordan Grace, was the face of TNA Women for the longest time, and now she's been in NXT, and she's probably still kind of looked at as like an outsider in kayfabe. So, so now they're both going to be referees. So I guess the idea is, are they going to be screwing, one of the teams?
Yes. So my issue with the angle as it was is really just my issue with NXT creative. Like, if you think of how, we WWE has done this often in around Survivor Series time. Out of thin air, all of a sudden, you have a brand versus brand thing. Why should people care? What are the stakes? What do you get if you win? Why, in this case, it is your company versus another company. So I thought, okay, maybe it'll be a little bit serious. But instead, they just come out and randomly just interfere with each other's promos, and Ava comes out, and all of a sudden, you pick a captain and they can pick their own team, and the people in the back, they don't really care if they're picked. They kind of want to be picked, but they don't. It's like not a big deal. And so to me, the whole build to NXT versus TNA, it could have been a lot more interesting and a lot more serious, but this is NXT, and it is the reason why I don't really pay attention to this show, because it wasn't done super seriously. What was your take on how they put these teams together, and whether or not they made it like something that's like must see?
Yeah. So what I'll say is, as I was watching the show, and even when the show was over, like, I get, like, when I watch the show, and I think you and I watch things differently, especially if it's something that it's not something that I'm watching specifically for the purposes of recapping it or doing, with a podcast of mine. I'm just watching it as a fan. And so when I watched NXT, what really impressed me, whether or not you thought that the build was good or, like you said, silly was the word you used. Um, and I'm not even going to argue with that, because especially the women's team, like that, just it made no sense. Um, but they spent the whole show basically promoting the next week's show and telling you that it was important and having people fighting for the opportunity to be on a team, doing promos to build up the match, and then the other matches that are on the show as well, which we'll talk about. So I thought by the end of that show, I thought, man, they did a great job of promoting next week's show. Whether or not you like this week's show is another matter entirely. And I did, but a lot of people didn't. But I thought you can't deny that they did a great job building up next week's show, as opposed to the AEW, where they mentioned the show, they mentioned a couple matches, but they didn't really do any hype or build to build to any of these matches on Dynamite, anyways. Now, when you ask me which, when I look at this lineup, actually, like now that I'm looking at it and having watched the show 6 days ago, like I'm real looking at it, it's like it's not really much of a lineup. But at the time the show was over, I was like super hyped because I just watched an hour hype for it. So as opposed to the AEW lineup that I look at, and when Dynamite was over last week, I'm like, they threw in the towel for next week. And now I'm looking at the lineup and man, that lineup looks awesome. But they didn't promote it. So it's
Right.
like, yeah, like if they had spent the same effort that NXT did in promoting that lineup, I think like people would be like super fired up for this show. And hardcore fans probably are anyways, but the general public that just watches the show week to week, like I think that average NXT fan is probably like super pumped for tomorrow night, just because like, oh man, they built up that show last week. It's going to be great. We're going to have NXT versus TNA, blah, 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 without even really looking at, oh, this card really on paper isn't much. But
so, I mean, obviously it's this tie-in. It's like
mm-hmm.
you also watch the TNA product. So maybe
I do.
there's more to
Mm-hmm.
this crossover if you follow the TNA product. But I just am trying, like, I don't understand. Like, if I'm coming into this, like, if I'm like a new
Mm-hmm.
fan and I'm like, oh, I'm watching NXT. Oh, I kind of remember what TNA is. Well, what are they fighting for? Like, why are they mad at each other? Like, what's going on? Why are they on each other's programs for? Is like, what is the conflict of the thing? Why Trick is the TNA champion? Why does he want to be on the NXT team? Like, those are just
Right.
kind of easy questions or easy things that you can watch on TV that they don't even really try to resolve. They just
No,
go,
other
here you
than
go.
kind of this general idea that, oh, NXT thinks they're better than us. And, because they've got our 2 titles, maybe they are. And so with Trick, like, yeah, TNA doesn't want him, even though he calls the company Trick NA, and and he says he's the face of the brand and all this. So all these guys, and the thing is, like, the guys on that team, well, 3 of them anyways, Santana, Kazarian, and Moose, have been targeting Trick. Leon Slater is more like, I think he's just there because he's awesome and they want to build
Because
up that.
he and Javon Evans are building
Yeah,
a match, and
yeah,
they are, kind of kindred spirits on each brand,
yeah, yeah.
which
And
is
that to me,
interesting, but it's also not conflict at the same time.
no, in fact, to the point where like they teamed up on this week's show and they had like an awesome match that all you wanted to see was like that team going for like any tag team title anywhere. Like that was, I don't even remember who their opponents were, but they just like they look like the best team in the world, even though they'll probably never team again, or well, I imagine they will, but not anytime soon.
So team NXT, team TNA on the men's side, I think people think
Hmm.
that the NXT women should beat the TNA women, which then means that maybe the TNA men have to beat the NXT men. But if you understand the history of WWE working with other companies and the strategies behind that, the logic would seem otherwise.
Well, I
So
think you might have mixed that up. Like, so the women will probably win for Team TNA.
that's what I mean in that
Yeah,
the NXT women's team, if you look at it
yeah.
from the specifics of who the wrestlers are, the TNA team's not even close.
No, no, and in fact, like they're not even. I mean, it's not even close to being the best of TNA. I mean, they do have the TNA champion on there, but she's an NXT wrestler. You've got the TNA tag team champions on there, but they're not very good, and and they kind of washed out in WWE. And then you've got Mara Sade, the former Jakara Jackson, who just got fired from NXT.
Yeah, and so
Like,
if you were looking at this from the perspective of who's the better team, the women's NXT team should blow these women out,
yeah,
4-0. But logic would tell you
right.
that the TNA team is going to win this match.
Yeah, and probably, I mean, one of the women would get a win that would perhaps set up a TNA title shot. So maybe like Amara Sade would get a win would get a pin over somebody on Team NXT, and then that would somehow set her up for a match with
Because
Kalani
this
Jordan.
is elimination like Survivor Series style, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah. So it probably going to end up with Kalani Jordan against like 3 members of Team NXT. So it'll be like all NXT, and then Kalani will fight against the odds and get the win. Maybe because JC Jane can't get along with her partners or something. In fact, you can almost bank on that one. Actually, I think it's Jada and JC. I have kind of not gotten along, so you could see some tension there.
Yeah, so the women's side is JC Jane, Sol Ruka, Jada Parker, and Lola Vice.
Yeah,
JC and Lola just had a match with each other.
yeah.
Team TNA, Kalani Jordan, the
And Soul
Inspiration.
and Jada did too, actually,
Right,
on
Sol and
No
Jada did.
Mercy. Yeah,
And Mara Sade, who's the former Jakara Jackson, and Jordan Grace is the referee in this match. So
yeah.
if we expect the TNA women to win, then the men on the NXT side are probably winning,
Mhm.
which is probably not the best for business if you're setting up Santana and Trick, only because it's expected. I just expect Team NXT just to win all of their everything, right? Just the way that WWE usually does this stuff. But
Well,
because they have to do it 50-50, I guess the NXT men win and the TNA women win.
and I could see the Hardys winning the tag team titles, because it probably is good business to have the Hardys in NXT for a little while.
And
And
then Ethan Page beats Mustafa Ali, and then you have
right,
50-50 across the
yep,
board.
yeah. Which, I mean, that's usually how these things go. But it's 50-50 across the board. But then when you look at it and say, okay, who got the wins?
Right.
The Hardys, who are WWE legends, and
Everybody who wins on the TNA side has some affiliation with WWE.
yeah, like if Kalani wins, I mean, she could be the sole survivor. In fact, I would be surprised if she wasn't. And she's actually an NXT wrestler. So yeah, it's kind of like the Invasion, right? When you had like Stone Cold and Kurt Angle on the ECW team, and they were the stars
Yeah.
against the WWE team, and you had Bubba and Devon and Booker on there just so they could take the pins, but the real stars were the headliners. So yeah, like in that sense, like this, I mean, it's kind of fun to see the interaction. You never know who's going to show up on what show or anything like that. I will say, like, I know people that I think I might have mentioned this last week that are watching TNA because of this affiliation. So in
As
that
if
sense, it's
as
working.
if there isn't enough WWE television as it is.
Well, you say that, but I mean, they're watching TNA instead of AEW. So, if you didn't have AEW to watch,
That's a sicko in another way, by the way.
yes and no. I mean, you may like the fact that you can see your WWE wrestlers on another show
Okay,
if you're a
but you
WWE
have
fan.
Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and now you're watching TNA because of
Oh yeah,
NXT. That's
yeah.
a sicko.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah, yeah. I see that. That'd be like watching ROH. So you can see
Right.
Jay Lethal. Yeah, yeah.
It's like all those people used to tell me they were watching AEW Dark for 5 hours. Like, why? What do you
I
get out of that?
hands up.
Right.
Well, because I like, what my favorite thing about that was, and actually ROH too, is like seeing the people that aren't actually normally on the show. Like so you bring in like an indie guy or women, and you get to see them. Like Billy Starks before she was signed and stuff like that. So you're getting to see people that they're interested in signing. That was my favorite thing about those shows, honestly.
Okay, so on the AEW side, we have Kyle
Mhm.
Fletcher against Kyle O'Reilly, my least favorite kind of AEW match,
Mhm.
where the winner is so easy to predict, and the argument of why I don't care about that match is that, because it'll be a great match. So
D-
what?
You,
That to
you,
me,
you
so
know,
what?
you know why this match was booked, right?
Kyle and Kyle?
Yeah, you just
Oh,
said it.
be why?
So the fans will
Oh, the
chant,
fans can
"Let's
chant
go,
Kyle.
Kyle!
I
Let's go!"
thought you were
Like,
gonna say because Kyle
no,
was a former NXT star.
no, no, no. This is they even eliminated. They're calling it the Battle of the Kyles too. Like they're just it. This is just so that the fans can go nuts chanting "Kyle forever," like whatever stupid chant they can come up with. That's what this is. Like that's all this is.
I'm happy that Kyle O'Reilly is employed. He is a very good wrestler. They do not push him for shit. That is that
He's a very good wrestler, and he is the worst, uh, like person for promos. He's
yeah.
so bad.
There's a unique charisma to him. He has to be with the right people, and they just don't get enough time to they do not even care to showcase that. They're just like, you're just going to be in this group and the conglomeration, and you won't speak, and you'll just kind of look sideways in the promos. So it is what it is, but
Yeah.
this is to me the worst type of AEW important match, because I don't find it important in any way, because we can watch great wrestling matches all day long. Like, why? What
Mhm.
separates this one from another, except for the fact that if you have an interest in Kyle Fletcher and the rise of Kyle Fletcher, you may be a little bit more inclined to pay attention to this. But he's also a heel,
Mhm.
so I don't know. But those kind of matches are just not really interesting to me at all. We also have Orange Cassidy and Pac, which they set up on Collision, and it sounds like it's going to be, at least if we believe Pac, no
Mhm.
interference from the Death Riders. And Orange Cassidy also said the Don Callis family. How is Pac even related to the Don Callis family?
He's not, but Orange is. So I think that's the idea that he wants them kept out of his business, which tells me that probably Orange Cassidy is going to be involved with the Don Callis family in some way at the pay-per-view. Because remember, he just wrestled Kyle Fletcher last week, and they got involved, right?
Can Pac grow his hair back out, please?
You don't like Mini Me Wade Barrett?
He looks like he should be in like like a buff guy in Lord of the Rings or something. That's what he looks like.
Or oh yeah, Gallum. But or like in one of those Guy Ritchie movies.
Yeah. And then we have Mercedes Moné against TBA. I will repeat this as I asked Dave his thoughts. John LaRocca surmised if it could possibly be Shayna Baszler, not that he knew anything, but he thought, because Shayna now lives in Florida, he thought it'd be a
Mhm.
nice, unique way to surprise folks if Shayna Baszler is coming into AEW. I couldn't think of anyone else really as far as who it could be.
There is someone that moved to Florida famously last year, I think it was, from Pittsburgh, but I don't think it's gonna be her.
If it was going to be her, you would advertise her, I think.
I think, yeah. Dakota Kai was a name I saw.
That's an interesting one.
Interesting one I saw, and take this for a grain of salt. I don't think it's gonna happen, but I think it would be an interesting idea. Izzy Moreno,
Hmm.
who the who now apparently October 7th is the 10-year anniversary of the day that Sasha Banks made her cry on NXT television. The problem is that they don't have the footage unless they maybe have a still photo they can use or something. But she is from Florida. She is a wrestler. It's possible. Homecoming? I don't know.
Okay,
Mercedes is
how much would Excalibur have to explain in a short amount of time so that people just didn't go, "Who the hell is this person?"
you may remember her as a fan of wrestling back when she was a child, and Mercedes Moné made her cry when she beat her favorite wrestler.
But
That's all you got to
that
say.
wasn't a mainstream story. That was a super insidery, like,
Was
NXT
it? I
story.
think it was a big.
The only thing I remember
Yeah.
from Izzy is supposedly how obnoxious her parents were. That's
Oh,
literally
I
the
no, I
only
just
thing I
remember, like,
remember.
I thought she was very memorable as the Bailey fan, that was always there and, like, just in the front row and going nuts for Bailey, and I thought, like, when she made it's not quite the Miz girl, but it's not far off in terms of, like, that she was a big part of that story. I don't think it's gonna happen, but it is something I saw, and I don't know if that date is right. I didn't do my thing. I'm getting this from the F4W board. Um
There you go.
I will go. I'm gonna go with. I think it's gonna be Shayna. So I like John's idea.
I'm hopeful that it's Shayna. I want to
Yeah.
see Shayna get an opportunity.
Now the only caveat to that is, I mean, she's kind of still got a foot in the water in WWE. In terms of, like, she was on a show just a couple weeks ago. So, but I think she's on a purview.
That was like a test though, right? Like that was like
Yeah, and she's been doing, like, I think she did, like, producing on a show or two. She was not on the most recent Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, which surprised me.
look, if she wants to be a wrestler, AEW is a great place for her.
Mhm.
And if she still needs to if she still believes she has something to give, one of her best friends is there. Rhonda still looks out for Rhonda's got somewhat of a relationship with people there. So I think it's a nice landing spot for her. Now, will she be in the mid card just like she was in WWE? More than likely, but hey, at least she can keep wrestling, and that if that's what is meaningful to her, then
Yeah,
that's
and helping as
more
well,
power
like,
to it.
as kind of like a player coach, I think would be awesome for her.
The Demand against the Hurt Syndicate in a street fight.
That's probably the match that was built up the best, honestly. Like, I think they gave it like a 5-minute segment on
MVP
Dynamite.
MVP saying, "So what? I lost a wrestling match. I want to fight now." There's
Yep.
it's still technically a wrestling match. MVP.
Mm.
Um, and then Brodito against Okada and Takeshita in a double Jeopardy match.
Yeah. So
It,
the deal here is, if Brodito pins either Takesh, or if either one of Brodito pins Okada, they get a unified title match. And if Takeshita and Okada win, they get a tag team title match.
what happens if Takeshita gets pinned?
Nothing. So you may have called the finish. You may have cracked the code. Uh,
Mox
what
and
happens is that there's tension between Takeshi and Okada because Takeshi
yeah.
just got pinned.
What if Okada accidentally hits the Rainmaker on Takeshita and he gets pinned?
Well, then Okada looks down at him, calls him a bitch, and walks away.
John Moxley against Ishii was made on Collision as well.
Yeah, for the 8 millionth time, but it's always great.
It's always fun.
I mean, the build for this was Excalibur said they're wrestling on Wednesday or Tuesday. It's a rematch of their famous match that I have no recollection of from the G1 in like 2022 or something.
Yeah, I was trying to remember what that match was, but that whole G1 tournament was, at least for Moxley, was the idea of whether or not he could adapt to their style in that way.
I said 2019. I think it was the 2019 one. I said 2022, but yeah, because that was before he actually even signed.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he went like 8-0 or something, and then finally started getting some losses. I've got it up here. I'm looking at the man. He wrestled Jeff Cobb. Oh yeah, here it is. The main event on July 19th, 2019. John Moxley won in 20 minutes and 36 seconds. There you go.
I would bet real money that it does not go 20 minutes and 36 seconds.
I'll bet you it goes at least 15.
You think so?
Oh yeah.
You think it's gonna be the main event? I don't think it's gonna be the main event.
I don't know. They're doing an extra half hour again. Did you see that?
Great.
Yeah. By the way, the Dynamite show, we haven't officially finalized this, but I think we're gonna stick to doing it on Wednesday this week. So
okay,
we'll put that out on Twitter and everything, because
that works.
Because I want to watch baseball, and I really like. I'm way more interested in baseball than I am in either of
Well,
these two
your
wrestling
Blue
shows.
Jays are kicking
So,
ass. That's why.
yep.
And then Jurassic Express in action and Samoa Joe Hangman face to face. On paper, for me, the AEW show is slightly more interesting, but at the same time, the uniqueness to this like special one night only show on
Mhm.
NXT, I could see the interest there. But knowing how I like each promotion better than the other, I would probably if I had to make a determination like what show do I want to watch, I'd watch the AEW show over the NXT show, but we'll be able to watch both, and I'll
Mhm.
probably pay a little bit more attention to the AEW show just because there's going to be more news coming out of it. But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be, my hope is that it is just a fun night of wrestling for both shows, and then we just move on to the next week.
I mean, the thing is, like this AEW show on paper, I mean, it looks like a pay-per-view. Like yeah, I'm sure that we're gonna see a million tweets on the screen during these matches that are gonna say that. But like
That's
Orange
what they said
Cassidy,
last week as I
yeah,
was watching the show, and I was
that
like,
was
"What
bullshit.
pay-per-view would I ever buy that had this lineup?"
But this
Nothing.
one, I mean, you got a Mercedes Moné title defense, you got a Kyle Fletcher TNT title defense. Orange Cassidy and Pac is a big match. Moxie and Ishii is not, but it's Moxie and Ishii. Brody King, Brodito and Takeshi and Okada, like that match. I mean, that's incredible. And then the Hurt Syndicate and the Demand is literally a rematch from the last pay per view. So,
Yep.
so I mean, really, like 5 matches on the show could be on a pay per view. And then you've got like Jurassic Express, probably a squash match. I'm interested in that match in some ways because I feel like this whole Jurassic Express thing, I feel like it's a mirage of some sort. Like I don't think Jack Perry is really into being the Jungle Boy in character. So I think like he's putting one over on the company and or the fans as part of this storyline. I just a feeling I have. Like I don't think it's just like he's not acting like Jungle Boy. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So I'm kind of interested to see where they go with this. And then like Luchasaurus is just kind of along for the ride, but he's kind of like I don't think he in storyline. I'm not sure he knows what's going on. Like 1 minute he's with Christian, the next minute he's with Kip Sabian. Now he's with Jungle Boy, and Jungle Boy's probably going to drop him at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on and let's take a look at this Crown Jewel show. Now, I have one question for you, and I know this is a little
Mhm.
bit different for you because of how you are watching these shows. We've explained why the ESPN thing doesn't matter to you. It's because you're not watching on ESPN.
Right.
You're
Yep.
watching on Netflix, so it's kind of same old to you. But I do wonder in the US if WWE has to have a little bit more of a newsworthy show for this one because of how a lot of people felt about their first one, which was overhyped and underdelivered. And now you have a show which historically is your a tie is like kissing your sister kind of show, where the stories building up to Cody and Seth and Tiffany and Stephanie, they're kind of created out of thin air, but the Cody and Seth one has history behind it that you can always go back to. And Seth is all of a sudden so possessed and obsessed about beating Cody. But still, no stakes, no real stakes. That crown jewel belt that nobody cares about. And so it's really about what matches are you most interested in watching, as well as what possible news could come out. Like to me, and I'll just say it from jump, the only match I'm really all that interested in watching is Io and Rhea Ripley versus Asuka and Kyrie, just because I think they've built that storyline up so fantastically well. I've seen John Cena and AJ Styles wrestle like a million times, and now they're 5 or 10 years older than they were the last time they wrestled. Tiffany Stratton versus Stephanie Vaquer, like the best version of that match is probably pretty great, but the worry with that match is that they may not be on the same page, and Tiffany, who's leading the match, and Tiffany's had some struggles of late. Cody and Seth is going to be good, but again, without any real stakes, I'm not super interested. And then what we believe is the last match added, Roman Reigns and Bronson Reed, as per Dave Meltzer, is going to be the 5th match. I think my only other intrigue to this show is who interferes and helps Seth beat Cody, whether that's Randy Orton, whether that's Brock Lesnar, how they play that out, because they have to build to the Survivor Series coming in November. Where are you with this pay-per-view? I mean, it's kind of like a early morning Saturday show, so that even takes some of the specialness away from me, because for me, a pay-per-view is like in the evening and your day is done, and this one, it's just like so early in the morning, and it's just something to get through, like content. But where are you with this show, and do you also think that they kind of have to do a little bit more with this one?
In terms of where I am with the show, like we have the 2 shows we just talked about. We have this one. We also have Bound for Glory happening on this weekend. And out of all those shows, this is probably the one I'm least looking forward to. And again, like I think one of the last things you said there was it's just another show that you got to get through, and that's kind of how I feel like it. Like I'm gonna watch it. I'm sure the matches are gonna be good. I'd be awesome if they had some angles. I do think that after the last one, and and a lot of the negativity around it, and especially the fact that you're asking people to pay for it, they do need to do something special. I'm kind of surprised they're not airing this one on ESPN because of the airtime. Like, I don't see what they'd have to lose. Like, why not just put it on it? Like,
If you're WWE, do you want that first rating to be kind of in the morning though?
well, I mean, it's gonna be no matter what, right? Like, it's gonna be in the morning on TV, or it's gonna be in the morning on the app. I guess on the app, it's not gonna be as public.
Yeah,
So
the
yeah,
the TV rating will be very
yeah.
public, and it will
That
give.
maybe that's the reason right there. But kind of to me, like you brought up, remember like Breakfast with Wimbledon.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of like what this would be, right?
Yeah.
Although
We've had too many of those lately, though.
it'd be like 5 a.m. It's 5 a.m. your time, right? So yeah, there's no way anybody on the West Coast is watching this live. But for me, like that's 7 a.m. my time, so I'll probably wake up and
Throw it
I'll have
on.
some coffee, throw it on. Yeah, I'll probably have the thing done by 10 o'clock.
Yeah, the thing
So
will be done by the time I
yeah.
get to watching it, so
Yeah, and so for me, that's great. So I will watch this one. More than likely, I'll watch it like closer to live than I ever do, almost. I think there was one show recently, maybe it was the last, or was that Paris one where I watched it pretty close to live because I remember you were doing the post show and I jumped on in the
Oh, yeah,
comments
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
But but I do think, yeah, like I do think they need to do something because the next one is big, like it's Survivor Series, so you want to have a little bit of momentum. You got John Cena's match against AJ Styles, which should have some interest. Like if you look at the names on the show, like other than CM Punk, like they've pretty much got everybody on the show. So, like it's kind of like their best foot forward in that sense. It's just like the matches are just kind of matches, like you said.
Mhm.
I don't know of anybody that cares about those crown jewel belts, or I think the ring is something that down the road could have some meaning, like if, because I think they get a new ring every year. So, the wrestlers can like kind of talk about that. Like I think Cody has said, like, I'd love to have like 5 rings by the time I retire. Because it's almost like they're saying, like, you're the WWE MVP for the year. Like it's
Mhm.
kind of what the idea is supposed to be, I
Though,
think.
we have the same thing in that there is a Raw SmackDown. Sometimes there is you don't wanna have 2 Raw winners in these
Yep.
championship matches, so it's not really the MVP, it's more about, how do
Yeah.
we keep this 50-50 at the same time?
Yeah. So if Seth wins, which is what a lot of people are expecting, does Stephanie win too? Because that would be 2 Raw people,
Yeah.
and I think that's what's happening. Like that's what the odds makers say, according to my friend Ian Carey on the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Um, so like that. So I think that one may not be what people think because of what you just said.
Mhm.
I feel like there's probably going to be like one from each side. Although, I mean, is there any doubt that Raw is the Ace show? Like, even though SmackDown's on cable, like, I feel like Raw is still the show to watch every week.
I think so.
Yeah.
They put so much more production on it. They they put so much more emphasis on things that happen on Raw. I think part of it also is SmackDown is on a Friday, and that's kind of the end of the week,
Mhm.
and people are, you know,
It just
ready for the
feels like when
weekend by
I'm
then.
watching, like, I'm more looking forward to it. When I'm watching, I'm more expecting something to happen, whereas with SmackDown, it's like nothing's gonna happen. I just
I'm actually surprised that USA did not move SmackDown to Thursday when they had the opportunity. Like they just kept it
yeah,
on Friday,
yeah, they
which is
must.
kind of
I
interesting.
mean, in a sense, it's hard to get viewers on Friday, so the fact that you have 1.5 million people watching every week is probably really valuable.
Did you
So
see that Versant also signed the WNBA to an 11-year contract? So the WNBA starting, I think it's starting next year, will be on the USA channel. So now
oh,
it
what
won't just be
what's
SmackDown.
Versant?
Versant is the Comcast company
Oh.
split up into,
Oh.
like, you got the Peacock side and and then you have the cable network side, and cable network side
So
is
is that an
Versant.
exclusive deal? Because I know WNBA is, like, all over the place right now.
So WNBA will be on Amazon, ESPN, Scripps, and now the USA channel.
'Cause I know, they're I mean, right now they're on CW, but maybe that's just local
That's the
broadcast?
Scripps Ion
Oh, okay,
part of
okay.
it, yeah.
Yeah, 'cause I know, Keela, doesn't get to watch NXT a lot because her Atlanta team, I didn't even know Atlanta had an NBA team,
The
but they
Dream, baby, the Atlanta
Mhm.
Dream.
Okay. Take your word for it.
They
I'm
play
waiting
in,
for
like, they play their arena, like, they don't actually have, like, a major arena, like, they play in this,
Oh,
like, small, unique building. AEW Collision fans would love the building that the Atlanta Dream play in.
talk to me in a year and I'll be all over that league when Toronto has a team.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so the last topic, let's talk about these ratings here. So I tried to give, like, the explanation, the layman terms explanation of what this big data plus panel rating is. So I'll try and explain it here, and you can fill in for what you understand it to be. From what I understand, Nielsen's range for their sample is like 42,000 homes
Mhm.
that they then populate the entire US with based off of those 42,000 homes. So the big data idea is that you have smart TVs, you have these cable set top boxes, you have some streaming services who are participating. And instead of just 42,000 homes as your sample, now you're looking at 45 million unique identifiers to kind of compare. I don't know if they're comparing or if they're combining, but there's some mechanism where they're taking the panel data and they're taking the big data and they're like looking at it to determine what these ratings are from here on out. And what has happened is a lot of the live sports, that those ratings are generally going up because they're able to, NFL specifically was like, you guys are undercounting us, like we know that there's more people watching, so that's part of the reason why this is happening. Everything else is pretty close, but for whatever reason pro wrestling has taken a giant hit, and the explanation, the one that makes sense to me, though this is all anecdotal, like, I've no idea, I've no insight into it, and I know Brandon Thurston just wrote a piece, and he's actually reached out to Nielsen to try and get their comments on this. But what makes sense to me is historically, as we know, pro wrestling is more popular, or at least in the past had been more popular with lower income homes. And I wonder if the current sample of 42,000 Nielsen homes may lean a little bit closer to the lower income households, which meant that there's a bigger crossover with pro wrestling maybe than some of the other shows. Again, super, like, guess. It's not even a hypothesis because I don't have any way to really um look at it in an educational way with information. But that was the thing that I thought about when we first started seeing these numbers. And I'm sure there will be studies done on it. I'm sure Big Dave and Brandon Thurston are talking to people and trying to figure out what's going on. You study these ratings, you do the columns for the Observer, you have all the data in front of you. Do you have any hunches about why this may be?
Okay, so I think there may be something to what you're talking about in terms of the income levels, but there's also something else that I think is probably more relevant. How many do you know approximately how many homes there are in the US that that this is based on? I want to say it's like 100 million. Does
So
that number sound right?
cable sounds like cable's only in like 60 million homes these days in the
Right, but the
US.
ratings are based on total households. So
Okay.
I think
I-
I think
I'll look
it's
it up.
I think it's around 100 million. So let's just go with the idea that it's 100 million, just because I'm going to do some math here. So
127 million according
okay,
to Google
127
AI.
million. Okay. So and you said there was 42,000 Nielsen homes that were monitored, right?
Yes.
So if we say an AEW show that did 600,000 viewers, that would mean, okay, that number doesn't sound right. Hang on. 42,000 divided by 127 million.
Actually, it looks like it's closer to 133 now.
Okay. Let's just go 130 just to be safe. Times 600,000. Divided by 130 times 600,000. Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. That means 194 homes are watching AEW. Now, that's a really small sample size out of 42,000 to get to an estimate of 600,000. So the margin of error for something like that, if it's like 10%, if you all of a sudden say, oh, that 194 is actually only 184, that is enough to explain the difference that drops it all the way down to 520,000 or whatever they did
And this
last
has
week.
been the argument historically about
Yeah,
why people don't like Nielsen is
right.
because of the small sample size.
And when you're talking about small sample sizes, it's so much more open to these kind of variations. Whereas when you're talking about like when this was developed and there was only 3 stations or maybe 10 or something, like, and an average network television show was doing 20 million, the variations didn't mean as much, like in terms of like overall percentages, but now it's like it can mean so much. So the difference between like a 0.1 and a 0.18 could be literally like 2 boxes changing. You know what I mean? So that's where, like, I think this obviously this bigger sample size is going to be more accurate, but more accurate doesn't necessarily translate. And it in a way it kind of makes sense, because if you think about it, like you look at how popular it feels like WWE is sometimes, but if you look at, like, if you compare it to like when we were kids and everybody watched, like now it's like it's hard to find people that actually watch wrestling, like outside of our normal
Also,
circles.
though, our circles are older men now and
Mhm.
and families, and what happens is when you get to a certain age, if you're a wrestling fan, more than likely you drop out. So even like
Right.
if our circles are grown-ups, those people have dropped out, though there may be circles of kids where it's kind of the same thing as us when we were younger.
But when we were kids, we watched because our parents watched in a lot of cases, like, because there was only like when I was a kid, there was only a handful of stations. So if you want to watch TV, you're watching whatever your dad watched. Mom's making supper. No, this is traditional. Like, I realize roles are different now. But back then, so mom's making supper, dad's in front of the TV. And if I want to watch TV, I watch what my dad's watching, or I go out and play. I don't have a choice of going on my tablet or going and watching a
Yeah,
different
yeah, my
television.
kids,
Yeah.
my adult kids, they do watch traditional TV because they're watching
Oh,
lots of sports.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
But my younger kids, the 15-year or the now 16-year-olds and the 10-year-old, they almost exclusively watch YouTube. Like
Yeah.
they don't. I guess my stepdaughter, she's been watching Wednesday a little bit and some of the K-pop Demon Hunter stuff.
Netflix.
So
Yeah.
that's on Netflix. So it's like Netflix or YouTube for her. So
My
there's
kids.
no traditional cable television or any broadcast TV for them.
Yeah, my kids watch variety of streaming. Like we have, subscriptions to all the streaming stuff. So I'm constantly getting like texts and DMs for my kids. And what's the code for this? What's the code?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
they
totally.
they just entered their information, and now they're going to send me a message to say, "Here's your code to activate your television." Right.
Yes,
So
yes.
yeah, I at least 4 or 5 times a week I'm getting that. So yeah. But yeah, so it's, like I said, I think it's partially probably that thing. Like maybe for some reason the Nielsen's were overrepresented by wrestling fans, whether it was income level or whatever. Like for instance, like I think Nielsen pays for people to do it, and you can opt out if you don't want it. So for a low income person, that money that Nielsen would give you may mean something, and you'd be more inclined to say yes. To whereas if Nielsen offered you $100 to be a Nielsen home, you're like, it's not worth it. But for someone else, that $100 may be a big, big thing for them.
I heard that they now want you to wear what would sort of be like an Apple Watch
Oh,
so that it can track where you go and what's on TV where you are, no matter if you're paying attention to it or not. And I'm guessing that's
wow.
how they get the bars in the airport stuff. In the
Right. Yeah. That's wow. That's pretty crazy. Like we know a mutual friend of ours was a Nielsen home for a long time. I don't know if you know who I'm talking about, but and he talked about it all the time, and he was a
Mhm.
wrestling fan. So right there, that was one.
Well,
Uh,
I had a book when for like a week or 2 when I was a kid. Somehow we were asked and it was a literal book that you would have to fill in and it would have the schedule.
mhm.
And I fibbed the whole thing. Like I was like, "Oh, I get what this is." Well, guess what? We watched the Cosby Show in syndication every single day, every episode, even if I didn't watch it. Like
Mhm.
I was just like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is about ratings." So I'm going to say that, because these are my favorite shows and I want these shows to stay on air. So I'm just going to say that I watched them even if I didn't.
We had one for radio one time, and we actually filled it in the way we actually listened. And I think I may have had a TV one way back when. They sent us $5. I remember this. It was like $5 and a booklet, and you
Mhm.
had to fill in what you watched for that week, and you got to keep the $5. Well, I mean, you're going to keep the $5 anyways, but if you sent it back, they would send you another one and another $5.
I'm
So
sure they were like, "Okay, nobody watches this much Cosby Show. This kid is like bullshitting
lying,
us."
yeah,
Or he
yeah.
probably thought it was my parents, but my parents weren't doing anything with it. They just gave it to me and I did it. So,
But the simple math on that math I was talking to you earlier, every household represents just under 3,100 people. So when you're talking about an audience that's, only half a million, like, that's not that much,
yeah.
and the fluctuation. So we make so much about like, oh, it went from, 620,000 to 550,000. Well, that's a difference of 70,000, which is 23 boxes.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
What I found, I don't know if you noticed this line in the Observer. I was just reading the Observer today, and the whole article Dave did about ratings. He says, "What I believe to be the real number," and he's using the old numbers.
Yeah, he's using the panel.
Yeah, so I found that interesting because he's not buying these new numbers. Is what I read from that. Which, I mean, these are the numbers that we're going to be using going forward.
Well,
But I feel,
if you're looking for mathematical possible errors, you just immediately look at the wrestling thing and say, "Okay, until you guys explain this,
Mhm.
this looks like an outlier."
Right, or this is the new normal,
Well, I
but I
mean, I
mean,
think you have to accept it for sure.
yeah,
But
but now
if
I
there's
think
no
he's gonna.
explanation as to why, for someone
Mhm,
like Dave, he's gonna
right.
go, "Okay, this is an outlier." Sometimes in data there are outliers, and then, there you have to explain for them. And for now, we're not, I'm you have to use them, but I'm not going to believe that this is the true number until they show me how they got to the number.
You know, the show tomorrow, I will tell you right now, I think the number is going to be really low. Like for
Yeah,
Dynamite,
I'm sure
like
it will be.
we're probably talking like
Look,
200,
if it goes under 400,
it's gonna be way under 400.
well, I won't say way under, but if it goes under 400, people are gonna lose their minds tomorrow.
They were under 400 last year.
Right? I
Like,
don't remember
so
anyone really losing their mind last year.
no, well, they just said, "Oh, well, it's against NXT. What are you gonna do?" They did 329
Yeah,
like
that's bad.
last year. So I
But
think they're gonna be
again, they should be hotter this year just based on the hardcore fans being way more interested in the program this year versus last year.
well, I mean, overall, their numbers are very slightly down. They're up in over 50 and they're down in 18 to 49. But that doesn't include Max,
Yep.
which is a whole other issue. So I'm gonna
And
tell you, they're gonna
I did point that out to Dave. I said,
yeah.
"Well, if these wrestling numbers, if these big data numbers are more truthful than the old panel numbers, then we also have to lower our expectations on how many people are watching on Max."
Or the Max numbers are even more valuable now
Possibly.
because
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
I mean, they're valuable for sure.
Yeah, but even more so, like if you're talking like if there is 100,000 people watching every week on Max, that's a much bigger percentage over 400,000 that might be watching on cable as opposed to the 600,000 we thought it was,
Yeah.
because that number is only going to increase in the next
You
5
would
years.
think. You would
Yeah.
think.
So yeah, I'm predicting right now. I'll tell you, like I think they're going to do like 280 and like a .06.
We won't
Like
know
and
until
people are gonna
Thursday, though, because
no,
now they're
yeah.
even a day later than they have been, so,
People are gonna lose their minds when this number comes out.
yeah.
Like, yeah.
Alrighty, that is it
Okay.
from here. So next week we'll have some Crown Jewel to discuss, and then it's the week to the pay per view,
World's
the
End,
the
yeah.
hype show for the pay per view.
I'll be
No,
all pumped
Wrestle
up
Dream.
about
You mean
Bound
Wrestle
for
Dream?
Glory coming off that show next week.
Don't you said World's End, but it's Wrestle Dream. I've seen people confuse World's End and
Oh
Wrestle
my
Dream.
god.
Like,
Oh my god, yeah, Wrestle Dream, Wrestle Dynasty. Oh, and there's a big, New Japan show this weekend
no,
too.
and then I just screwed it up because it's not, is it Wrestle Dream? Yeah,
It is
it's
Wrestle
Wrestle
Dream,
Dream.
yeah.
Yeah, Wrestle Dream.
Konosuke Takeshita is wrestling for the world title on Sunday. Oh, so they're yeah, that's happening on
Against
Sunday.
Zack Sabre Jr.?
Yeah, he might win. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I discontinued my New Japan subscription just because I haven't used
Oh,
it since, the G1, and I didn't even really use it a ton during the G1.
yeah.
That I might have to reactivate to watch that match.
I just watched it. I just watched a show yesterday, and I'll be watching one probably in about an hour. So,
Alright, that's it from here. For Paul, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.